When I first undertook to do this series of radio shows, I sat down and made a list of the people I wanted to interview, people that I thought had something important to say, something worth hearing, and people who had achieved, who had accomplished things that merited recognition. I immediately put one name at the top of the list. You can imagine then the great pleasure I have when I tell you that my special guest today and on my next show is that person, Miss Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand is the author of Atlas Shrugged, the ultimate mystery story, not about the murder of a man's body, to quote from the book's cover, but about the murder and rebirth of man's spirit. She is also the author of The Fountainhead, We the Living, The Virtue of Selfishness, The Romantic Manifesto, and much, much more. Like her hero Howard Roark in The Fountainhead, Ayn Rand is an architect, but she an architect of ideas, structuring her own unique and complete philosophy, objectivism, a philosophy which has influenced millions of people around the world. Miss Rand, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much.
Miss Rand, I mentioned in the introduction that you built a total philosophy, and I use those words intentionally because many, perhaps most people, often think of philosophy as affecting only a portion of life, perhaps politics or economics or morality. But your philosophy ties together all of these areas as well as all other areas of human conduct. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Because some of my listeners may not be as familiar with objectivism as I am, and without asking you to summarize your entire philosophy, could you speak a bit about the principles that are at the core of objectivism, the principles that tie together all of human life?
I shall try, but it is obviously very difficult because if it could be presented briefer, I should have presented it briefly. But I've written millions of words, and even at that, one cannot say I've finished completely. So that philosophy, since it underlies everything else in life, covers everything, and cannot be presented too briefly. I can only give you the essentials and hope that you can understand what they mean if you're interested in philosophy.
Yeah.
Philosophy has 5 branches. The basic one is metaphysics, and closely associated with it is epistemology. In fact, the two cannot be separated. In metaphysics, my philosophy, objectivism, holds that there is only one reality, not 2, nor 4, nor 10, but we perceive by means of our senses. That the things we see are real, they do exist, and our purpose as conscious beings has to be, first of all, to gain knowledge of that reality and to learn to understand it. This is the province of the second department of philosophy, which is epistemology, the science, the theory of knowledge. Epistemology tells us what we know, how we know it, and what we may regard as knowledge. Objectivism holds that man's only means of knowledge is his mind. Reason is man's only faculty for gaining knowledge of reality and for guiding his actions and making his choices. By reason, I mean the faculty which identifies and integrates the material provided by man's senses. The next branch of philosophy is ethics, or morality. It tells men how to make the basic choices on which the conduct of his life depends. Politics is the study of man's relationship with other men, and it has to be, and always has been, based on the kind of morality that a given philosophy upholds. There are certainly very wrong moralities, very evil ones, at the basis of most political systems, but nevertheless some of judgment, some kind of theory of right and wrong underlies every kind of political system on earth. And the fifth branch is, of course, aesthetic, which is the part of philosophy that deals with art. Now there's your skeleton. Let's quickly fill it up.
Okay. Well, I wanted to ask you
Fill
this.
it with flesh,
true,
I mean.
is it true that if a person holds a certain metaphysics, a certain view of life, he is likely to develop a certain ethics?
Oh, yes, certainly.
If, for example, hypothetically, a person held the view, and I'm not sure if this is metaphysics or epistemology, they're so close as you said, but that life is unknowable, mysterious and unknowable, what morality would he likely develop?
Most likely the one that's prevalent today, which is altruism. He will desperately need someone to guide him. If he believes that life is unknowable, by that mere belief he confesses that he has not done many attempts to learn anything about life, because life certainly is not unknowable. But if he's given up the job that way, he won't be able to survive unless somebody sacrifices for him and guides him. He could not stand on his own. Independence would be the kind of virtue that he could not possibly practice. And therefore he would, by logical progression, lead to the culture of today.
Into altruism. And what politics would he likely go for?
Collectivism. Politics where the tribe or the herd, the society, other men, or a dictator actually, would take care of him. And he will get the kind of care he deserves. He would not need these problems very long.
Can I extend it one step further and ask you what his aesthetic preferences would be?
His aesthetic preferences, I don't know, but probably the kind of junk that's sold today. Shapeless, allegedly emotional, no plot, no structure as far as the novels are concerned, no subject matter, nothing intelligible as far as painting is concerned. That is what would appeal to him, because he does not want to exercise his faculty of reason. He does not want to think.
I heard you a couple of years ago, I think it was at the Fort Hall Forum in Boston, and I heard you say in response to some lady's question, don't accept anything without proof, make me prove everything I say. And that was very refreshing, I might add, to hear from a philosopher, because so often in studying philosophy, other philosophies, you invariably come to a point where there's either an assumption or you have to accept something on faith, or there's some given without proof.
Oh, yes, certainly.
So I was delighted to hear that every aspect of objectivism is provable, and in that context I wanted to ask you, can you prove to me, you've written a book, The Virtue of Selfishness, which itself caused quite a flurry because selfishness is often thought of as a uncomplimentary character trait, to say the least. And you state that it is a virtue.
Yes.
Can you, you can of course, will you prove to me that selfishness is a virtue?
I cannot possibly do it in the time you would permit me. Half an hour isn't enough, an hour isn't enough. But if you read that book, it will give you some idea of why selfishness is a top virtue, or equal with rationality. To just barely indicate to you that the proof does exist, I will call your attention to the following. Man cannot survive without knowing a code of values, without knowing how to act. Man is not programmed to have an instinct of survival. He does not have it. He may have the desire to survive, but he doesn't have the knowledge. Man needs to acquire knowledge of how to live, what action to take to further his life, or what action will lead to his destruction. By his nature, because he survives by means of a volitional faculty, reason, which he may choose to exercise or not.